started so we don't have background noise, that would be appreciated. And it is officially 11:30. So we're going to go ahead and kick off the May Camano Chamber member meeting. So thank you everyone for being here. It is kind of a typical spring day right now, cloudy and sunny, but really appreciate you hanging in there with these Zoom meetings. We're really looking forward to being able to have our first meeting in person. I don't even know how long it's been, a June mixer that's going to be joint with the Stanwood Chamber. So I'll talk about that at the end. But today we have Sharon Sappington, who is the Executive Director of the Economic Development Council for Island County. We're thrilled to have Sharon with us today. Sharon joined the organization 3 years ago. And for the past 25 years, although she looks like she's 25, she's been a multidiscipline leader, manager, consultant, and advisor covering a wide range of functions, world areas, and industries, both in the public and private sectors. Sharon's background includes living in South America for 7 years, during which her work spanned many world regions, cultures, and activities, as well as on-the-ground economic development projects in Bolivia and Romania with the United States Agency for International Development. She relocated to Whidbey Island from Seattle 4 years ago, and moving to Island County is one of the best decisions she's ever made. So I agree. Moving to Island County was a very good decision, Sharon. If you hadn't done that, we wouldn't have you and your wisdom. So thank you for being here, and I will hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Jessica. Okay, I'm going to kill you all with PowerPoint. Sorry. I just have to.
We like PowerPoint.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's been a while since I talked to you guys, so it's nice to kind of see you kind of. I'm going to, just give a presentation about what's been going on. I'm going to throw a little piece of education in there, and then I'm going to introduce somebody else that will speak for a few minutes. I'll put my contact information right up front. You will get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation after this. So the Economic Development Council, we've been around for a while. We're a private 501c nonprofit. We are also the Associate Development Organization, referred to as the ADO. You'll hear that term a lot. We serve as the countywide economic development partner with the Washington Department of Commerce. That really means that we are their feet on the ground, so to speak. We work with them very collaboratively. They reach out to the ADOs consistently. I mean, I'm right now, since the pandemic hit, I'm in meetings with them twice a week. So they really are seeking the ADOs input when they put together programs or grants or whatever, because they really don't know the economic realities of each of our counties, and they really do depend on us for that. And the bottom line for the Economic Development Council is that we're dedicated to promoting the economic vitality in Island County. It really comes down to that. Now, how we do that can be multifaceted. So now here's the little educational piece. I'm going to talk a little bit about the big picture of economic development. Since I come from an international trade background and I have done economic development in other countries, I always like looking at it, the bigger picture. What does economic development look like in the world? So you have economic development at all these levels. So we have, the global economic development. You hear a lot about the country economic development. Each country has some level of economic development. Now, this slide, of course, is US centric because, not all countries have states and countries or states and counties, but we have economic development on a state level, a county level, and as you know, on a community level. What's interesting is a lot of times when a country is looking at their economic development, they reach down into the community level to actually get things done. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And looking at country level, there's these levels of economic development kind of in three buckets. Now, I'm not crazy over these three categories. These categories have been around for a while. Ever since I've been in international trade, people have been talking about how we change those categories because it's not inclusive. It's not positive. And when you talk about an underdeveloped country, what comes to mind? All the things that are bad come to mind. And they're kind of stuck in that category, and it's not beneficial. But for time being, these are the categories, so that's what I'm going to use here. So what does underdeveloped country mean? That means that their needs are not met. They might not have enough food. They might not have enough clean water. I mean, those basics are really, really missing. They have bad infrastructure. That means, bad roads, if they even have roads. They might have paths. They have bad or no plumbing or electricity. They have very poor health care, if any. Very few schools. And if there are schools, it's hard for people to get to them. When you move into the developing, it's different. Their needs are met, but with no extras. Just the very basics are met. They have their basic food. They don't have any little treats and stuff like we do. Their infrastructure is okay. Their roads are okay. They might wash out from time to time. Their plumbing and electricity is okay if you happen to live in an area that has it, and maybe it stays on a lot of the time. They might have some health care. Again, it might be hard to get to that health care. They have some basic schools. And what's different here is they now have a manufacturing economy. That's different than when they were in subsistence agriculture. That agriculture is where you're growing food to eat. You're not growing food for retail reasons, for selling it. But you move over to the manufacturing, now people are selling some produce. They're making some things. A lot of the jobs are in factories. And you go over to the developed, and that's where we are. Our needs are met, and we have extras. We might complain, but compared to underdeveloped, we've got it really, really good. We have food, we have water, we have shelter, we have technology. Our infrastructure is good. We've got good roads, good plumbing, electricity. We have healthcare options. We've got schools and universities. And we have an entrepreneurial economy where people can go out and have their own business, start their own business. They have time and the means to be creative and to do research. So it's hugely different in these three categories. Now, I often get asked, what is economic development? There's a lot of different definitions. It really depends on who you talk to. It comes in all different forms. As you can see at the different levels on the globe, it can mean different things. And there's different contexts for all of it. So just for a few examples, here is the definition of economic development from the World Bank. The World Bank is an international financial institution that provides loans and grants to governments, and these are primarily in low and middle income countries, and it's really for the purpose of pursuing capital projects. So they talk about build up the economic capacity. That means there's a problem with their capacity right now. And they're really trying to improve their future. Then you move over to the EDA. This is a US agency. It provides grants to economically distressed communities to generate employment and to stimulate industrial and commercial growth. So they look at it a little bit different. Here, they're not talking about building up that capacity. They're really talking about creating the conditions for economic growth. And again, they bring in that quality of life. You're going to hear that a lot in economic development. It really comes all down to quality of life. Then you have the International Economic Development Council. This is primarily US, they are a little bit into Canada. It's a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization serving economic developers. So the EDC is a member of the International Economic Development Council. It's got like 5,000 members in it, so it's quite large. So they're looking at it here different. They have a different view of it. They're looking about job creation, job retention, tax-based enhancements. But again, quality of life. So I'm always looking at definitions for economic development. And I kind of frame it for Island County because that's what I'm doing, is working in Island County. So I kind of look at it as, we're building upon our local assets. We've got great assets here. So we're really looking to develop those assets and to try, enhance those opportunities that are coming our way to improve our quality of life, but in a sustainable way. And so what the EDC does in that is we identify opportunities and apply efforts to create a vibrant and vital economy. Now you can have all those definitions, but what are the real efforts? Again, there's no one definition, there's no one strategy or policy or program. It all really depends. What we do in Island County is going to be different than what they do in King County or in a county in Eastern Washington that has a lot of land and a small population. We all have different things that we're going to emphasize, but we do tend to work in a lot of these same categories about creating jobs, revitalizing older areas, and a lot of it has about working in these strategic partnerships to get things done. Now, some of you might have seen the economic development three-legged stool. Like the definitions for the country level, economic different levels, this is in dispute also now. It's been in dispute for a while. 3 legs isn't enough. I'm looking at models now with 4 legs, 5 legs, 6 legs. This is kind of an older model. We're still working in this though, because there has not been an agreement of what those categories might be. We have a tendency to put a lot of emphasis in certain one of these areas, and some of those emphasis might get pulled out separately to be a leg. But right now, we really look at retention and expansion of companies. We want to keep our companies here, the companies that are here, we want to help them expand. We want to attract the right kind of businesses to our community, and we want to have new companies start, our entrepreneurs. We at the EDC right now, we've kind of categorized it in these 4 elements. You can see that those 3 elements are in there, but we also have readiness and capacity building. And that's really putting forward efforts to make all of our organizations, all of our leaders more capable. The EDC gets involved on this level by participating and partnering with other organizations. For example, we're a member of the Island County Tourism Committee, as is Jessica. We're a member of the Island Regional Transportation Planning Organization, the Technical Advisory Committee. We're a member of the Northwest Workforce Council, which is the council that represents our 4 northwestern counties. We're involved with the Skagit Valley College Worker Retraining Advisory Committee, and it kind of goes on. So that's where we're plugging in, and we are able to contribute and add values to that area with the idea of increasing the readiness and capacity in our county. Now, we're still looking back. We always talk about we're going to always look forward, but we do still have to kind of look back because we're still learning lessons from what we did since March. And we'll continue to learn some lessons as things become more real and things start moving along more. But like a lot of, this is the same story for a lot of people. When it hit, we went virtual. We all packed up our stuff out of the office and we all set up at home. Fortunately, that was easy for us to do. It was a matter of taking laptops and things like that home. And then a few files, but we do so much virtually anyway. We reallocated our staff and financial resources accordingly. You know, what we were doing before, we had to kind of stop because we had some new priorities. We had to be nimble, so we put on our old nimble shoes, and we had to adapt to a new environment while being flexible to make these course corrections. As we all know, things were happening fast and furious, and there wasn't a clear path. Through all of this, I believe that the communications was really, really key. The EDC maintained our informational communications with our Island County Task Force. That was started, I believe it was in April. Talking constantly to my counterparts, the other ADOs in the other counties, because we were all sharing best practices on a weekly level. Those conversations and communications with all the different agencies and organizations to hear what's coming down the chute next, or what just changed in the last hour. And then whatever we had, we tried to share that information the best we could. We tried to keep on top of all the resources that were there to help the businesses and employers. We tried to communicate that information through different methods, and then also we assisted the businesses in trying to interpret some of those details. The EDC board got together and said, okay, we need to set down some priorities now for this economic and business recovery. So we did. We created a priority document, and those top priorities turned out to be, advising the businesses and nonprofits that were seeking assistance, and then providing that technical assistance, all having to do with the recovery. I talked about the communications, and the relationships are really, really key here too. I mean, the EDC, we always had a lot of good relationships, but more were developed and more were deepened. It was very, very interesting. Ever since I've been with the EDC, I had great relationships with different organizations and different individuals. But when COVID hit and we were trying to work hard through all this really difficult time, I started learning more about everybody. I learned more about the individuals. I learned more about the organizations. On the individual level, I learned about skills and really cool stuff about individuals that I thought I knew, but I didn't know. And so it's been a great experience to have all these deepened relationships with everybody. And with that comes this deeper collaboration. Also, we did grants. We administered 2 grants through the Washington Department of Commerce, the Working Washington 1 grant. I believe that was the first grant that ever hit Island County. So we were able to help 23 businesses in that. The second round came out. That was a bigger hunk of change. Well, that was actually smaller hunk of change, but Island County said, hey, we've got this money. We're going to throw $150,000 into that bucket for you to administer. So that was great. So we were able to help more businesses, and at the same time, we were able to help 4 chambers and 1 Main Street association. And then we had the Working Washington 3, that finished up last year. And then this year there was a Working Washington 4. We didn't administer those. We talked a lot with Department of Commerce before those were kicked off. And there was an agreement that it was better if the ADOs didn't administer it in these cases, because there were some subtleties that were involved, and we just felt that it was better if they did it through some other partners. But we definitely were helping them all the way through all of these. The Working Washington 4, that one is the applicants were just notified on May 10th. All the applicants were notified if they got the grant or didn't get the grant. I'm still waiting for the final numbers on that, but it looks like on a state level, there were close to 12,000 businesses that got awards. And so that's really, really cool. Some of them were denied because there were some other vehicles that would be better for them to use. For example, the USDA had a program for wineries and distilleries that in a lot of cases, the business would get more money if they went through that grant rather than this grant, and they couldn't have both. And so there was a lot of collaboration and communication to try to identify those companies to, enable them to get the largest amount of money. On the Working Washington 4, there is appeals process that is open. That's open until May 24th, where, if you're a business and you applied and you think that, man, I was eligible and I didn't get it, you can appeal, because they know that there's going to be some cases where maybe they didn't put the right kind of information in their application. It was just a minor little detail in that they really are eligible. So while we were in the pandemic last year, we still had to look ahead. You just can't stop. But that look ahead was pretty blurry, but we had to do our best shot. So the board, the EDC board, got together and they said, okay, we had started our 5-year strategic strategy before the pandemic. We took a little breath here, but now let's get back at it. And so that we completed that 5-year strategic priority. It came up with actually 2 tiers of priority, and each element, each priority, is the role of the EDC that plays in each one of those priorities is really dictated by our effectiveness, our value, and our resources. For example, there might be some priorities or initiatives that the EDC will take the leadership role. Another one might be, well, no, it's better if we take a partnership and collaborative role because maybe somebody else is better at playing that leadership role. Or in some cases, we will just be an advocate. We'll just be supportive however we can. And so this is what the priorities look like. Within the tiers, they're not in any kind of priority. That being said, the first one in the first tier is the #1 priority, but none of the others are. And that is, helping our businesses. It comes down to helping our businesses. We're going to continue to work as the recovery advisor for businesses and nonprofits. We're going to advocate for those policies and programs that are going to help us. That's a lot of the work that we do with the Department of Commerce, and we also talk to our legislators, and we do whatever we can do to push forward what is going to help our economy in Island County. And again, I'm going to talk about those relationships. I talked about how really cool they were while we were going through all of this. Well, they have to continue more than ever. We're going through this recovery and beyond. These relationships have proven to be very, very valuable. We have to make sure that we nurture them and utilize them. I'm going to hit on a little bit of data. You've got to have that. Economic development data goes hand in hand. This was done in 2019, and we haven't redone this yet. We look at the major employers. Both this slide is the government employers, but we also have the private employers. We will at some point start doing this one again. This one involves calling all these organizations. You can go on to all these, Secretary of State or Reference USA, and you can do all this other information, but the information isn't accurate. It's outdated, always outdated. We can get more accurate information by calling the organization and saying, how many employees do you have? And they tell us, and then we have it. So for the government employees, you can see that Camano has 99, well, as of in 2019, had 99 employees in the Stanwood Camano School District. Over in the private employees, Camano didn't hit this list. But, it'll be interesting to see, these will probably pretty much be the
Camano IGA is on this list, Sharon.
Are they? Where?
Yeah. Look about, I don't mean to correct you mid-meeting, I apologize.
Oh, no, that's fine. Oh, there it is. Yeah, you're right. Okay, cool.
And I would be curious if Heritage Bank, for example, includes their Camano employees, but that's another question for another day.
I believe it does. Yeah. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, thanks, Janet.
Thank you.
Looking at unemployment, this is from the Employment Security Department. I haven't updated this in the last month, but there's no surprises here. We can, if we would have looked at this a year ago, if we would have tried to project this out, we wouldn't have projected it this way. But now looking back, it all kind of makes sense. We had the big old spike, and yeah, it's moving just as we would predict. As the same for the unemployment claims. No surprises here. It's what it looks like, the reality we live through. Looking at some other areas, kind of looking at these big hunks. This is as of beginning of this month. Well, actually, I think of as of May 14th. You can see again, there's no surprises here. Our unemployment, our employment has dropped. Our taxable retail sales has gone up. We would have never predicted that a year ago. No way we would have predicted that. And our support programs for food, those number of participants have gone up. And credit card spending has gone down. I got this that last slide came from the Economic Recovery Dashboard of the Department of Commerce. I had shown this to Jessica and Janet a few months ago, so they're aware of this, but Jessica asked me to show this. I was thinking of doing like a live demo, but I just wasn't confident that broadband or internet would hold up. So I just created a couple slides instead. Over on the left, you can see that there is the website. It's just at the Washington Department of Commerce website. You can go in there. It's pretty intuitive to use. As you can see, the data that I just showed is a part of this box, but this is what it looks like when you pull it up. This is a tool that was developed by the Washington Department of Commerce during the pandemic. They just felt that they needed to contribute something for some data for us. And so they hired a company to come in and develop this dashboard. They had been talking about enhancing it to make it more granular, because right now it only goes to a county level. It doesn't go down into the regions of a county. So, but I don't know, that was at the end of last year, they were talking about doing that. So I don't know, priorities change from time to time. So, we'll see on that. But they bring in information from a lot of different sources for employment, business, government assistance program, consumer behavior. And so the first slide that I showed, actually what I started off with is this. There's a map, and all you have to do is go in and click on the county, and then it populates this left side with just the island county. But then you can go in deeper, like you can pick on any of these categories. So for example, down here on the bottom, there's consumer behavior. So I can click on that, and then I can see here is the consumer behavior, credit and debit card spent by day, and I can compare it to Washington State. So it's kind of interesting. And I can select the time period. So when I select the time period, that chart's going to stretch or contract. So you can actually dig in. Another one is the taxable retail sales. So I got to choose what I wanted. I could say what month. I could pick my industries. So I didn't pick any particular industries. I just took all of them, but I could break it down. I could just say, I just want to see the construction industry, or I just want to see retail. And then I can select my counties. So here I just have 3 counties selected. I happen just to choose Island, San Juan, and Snohomish, just to see. So it's interesting to dig into this and play around with this a bit. And then going, away from kind of the economic or the business side of things, looking at your basic food programs. So here I'm looking at Island County, and this is the basic food participants. And what that is, it's a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, as referred to as SNAP, and the State Food Assistance Program. So you can see the number of participants over time. And again, you can see pandemic, it went way up. And it's still kind of staying up there. It's kind of going up and down. Hopefully that the March will show us that will continue to go down. And then also in the basic, in the food and the assistance, this is on the temporary assistance for needy families. This is food again. And so kind of the same story. And this might include more than food, now that I think about it. And moving into, impacts of travel, which Camano cares about, as all of Island County cares about. Our direct spending over time for the county, you could see in 2019, we were at a nice high. It's definitely dropped down, but it's interesting, every year it's gone up, up, up. So I suspect that now that we're down, we'll start growing up again. And if you look within the travel, if you look at the different commodities, all the commodities types have decreased over the year for the county. There's no surprises there. And looking at employment in that sector, again, everything dropped. Again, these are not surprises, but it's nice to see some numbers. And again, in the travel industry, looking at the spending by area, everybody saw a reduction except for Green Bank and what's considered the other incorporated areas. Now, other incorporated areas in this case does not include Camano. But the thinking is that that's fueled by the rental homes. A lot of people were wanting to come here. And then digging in by area, here Camano is incorporated into the unincorporated. But the share of lodging sales has shifted. It's gone now more towards the unincorporated areas, from 62 to 69. And looking just at the unincorporated areas, which now we have Camano broken out separate, they've grown in terms of lodging sales and percentage of sales. So that's good news. And just a couple more things coming soon. Woohoo! We are going to have a local market intelligence program on our website. We were hoping to have it on there in April, but we ran across some technical difficulties between two suppliers, and they're trying to work it out to get this. But this will be very user-friendly. It's for the occasional user. So many of those data packages out there are not for the occasional user, a week of heart. So this is going to be easier. You'll be able to go in and look at your neighborhood or your region. Say you're a coffee shop and you're thinking of putting in a second coffee shop, and you want to determine where it might go in the county. So you can start looking at some data. You can see who your competitors are, how many employees they have, perhaps how much the salaries are. Or you could say, I want to go into an area, I want my coffee shop in the highest economic area. So you want to be around the rich people. So you can identify where those rich people are. And then when you get that, then you can see, okay, what's the closest competitor, that kind of thing. So that will be interesting when we get that. And we'll make an announcement when it's live. We have, over the last few years, this goes now before the pandemic, we've made a lot of changes in the EDC, new leadership. Our board is a different makeup. We still have some of the same board members, but we have a lot of new members. I'm just really happy with the mix of board members that we have. Our direction has changed, our strategy, and we've increased capacity. And that capacity is really, really critical, especially now, for helping these businesses. And what we needed is more capacity to advise businesses one-on-one. And that's businesses that want to just start, or businesses that want to stay in business. Maybe they're really, really struggling, or they want to expand. So I'm just going to go into a little outline of my journey here to increase our capacity to better serve our businesses. And then that's going to lead me into the introduction of our next guest. So going back a bit, prior to EDC, I was an SBDC advisor, the Small Business Development Center advisor. I was in that role for 5.5 years. In my case, my particular focus of advising was international trade, because obviously I had done that for many, many years. In the state at that time, there were about 25 advisors, and there were only 2 of us doing international trade. And all the other advisors were ones that worked really deeply with the businesses at a kind of a little bit different level. When I was in international trade, I was working with businesses looking on how they export their products, like considering different world areas, countries, determining how to increase their capacity to be able to export, looking at trade agreements, regulations, tariffs, all those really exciting things. But these businesses tended to be a little bit larger in size than a lot of the businesses that work with SBDC, and they were already most of them were in a pretty good, strong position as a business. So that's a lot different than the other advisors, the bulk of the advisors, because the advisors are really working with businesses at a core level, really digging deep into all aspects of the individual businesses. For example, the financials, operations, the HR, marketing. But even though I worked in international trade, I worked consistently with my coworkers around the state, and a lot of times co-advising them. Maybe I did have an export client that they needed some core work done on their business before they could take that risk of exporting. So I would call in an advisor that would sit down and work with them, or we'd work with them together. And so I saw firsthand the value to these small businesses of working with an advisor like that. And these businesses got this for no cost, which is really, really cool. I knew that we didn't have this in the budget, well, backing up a little bit. When I first started at EDC, I was shocked that there was not an SBDC advisor in the county. It just kind of blew me out of the water that such a valuable resource wasn't there. So I knew I had to change that. But we didn't have it in our budget to hire one. They come at no cost to the business, but somebody's got to pay for them. And we just didn't have in our budget. So I tried to find some alternatives to an SBDC advisor. Even though there's a lot of really talented people out there, I couldn't find a really good alternative. Back in early 2019, I knew I couldn't afford to bring in an advisor. So we created the SBDC and EDC program. Some of you might remember that. I actually borrowed an SBDC advisor in Skagit County from the EDC there to work at our office. So she came to our Coopville office twice a month. And that was great. It proved to be really, really good value for the company, for the businesses that got to work with them. But 2 days a month just wasn't enough, nor was she local. She loved coming to Island County, but she didn't live here. She wasn't invested like somebody else that really lives here. So I really wanted somebody that lived here and to be a part of the community. So between convincing my board of directors and drilling into the budget, I was able to justify us hiring an SBDC advisor for Island County. So that was, I was just beside myself happy. Now, of course, the pandemic helped me make that sales pitch a lot better because the need had increased. So I worked very closely with SBDC, with the leadership. We decided what we were looking for. We posted the job. We received a lot of really excellent resumes. We did panel interviews, but resumes and interviews, one stood out above the rest very, very clearly. And fortunately, when the job was offered to her, she said yes. So we now have an SBDC advisor on our team. We discontinued the borrowed advisor. Well, good thing, because she actually left her job anyway. So it was perfect timing. Our new advisor lives in Island County. She has an office at the EDC office. However, we're all still working virtual, but she will be spending time there. And she's advising businesses on Camano and Whidbey Islands. And with that, I'd like to introduce Christina Hines. I want to say a few words about her first. Christina joined the EDC and Washington SBDC Network Advisors in October. She has nearly 20 years in business administration, human resources, small business consulting, marketing, and communications. Her experience working for publicly traded organizations, as well as several small private corporations all throughout the United States and across various industries, has afforded her a strong business sense and keen ability to identify unique business needs. As a resident of Whidbey Island, she has an intense desire to see our small businesses succeed and is invested in the wealth of our communities. And with that, I would like to introduce Christina.
I think Christina is still muted. So we just need you to unmute. There we go.
Sorry, my mouse decided to stop working. Thank you so much for the introduction, Sharon. I really appreciate it every time you do it. It's wonderful. As Sharon mentioned, my name is Christina Hines. I am the Small Business Advisor with the Washington Small Business Development Center and the EDC for Island County. I'm going to go through a really short presentation, short and sweet, just a little bit about the SBDC and how we can, and I specifically can help small businesses in Island County and specifically Camano Island. Okay, so the SBDC program was created by Congress 41 years ago with the Small Business Act of 1980. We've been housed in Washington under Washington State University since then. The SBDC program exists in every state and most territories. In Washington State, we have 25 centers and 34 network advisors. 2 of those network advisors being export specialists that work with anybody throughout the entire state who want to begin an export business. We are funded partially by the U.S. Small Business Administration, as well as our local economic development partners. In this case, it's the Economic Development Council of Island County. Thank you, Sharon. Let's see. Okay, so we do have an accreditation through the Americas SBDC. And so what that means basically, in order to receive SBA funds, our organization has to meet certain parameters, and one particular is a pretty intensive 6-month or 12-month certification program for advisors. Each one of us we all have master's degrees or MBAs. We've all either owned our own small businesses or have consulted for small businesses. So well-versed in the tune of small businesses. That's pretty much all the advisors in our network. What is our mission? So our mission is to help Washington businesses grow and succeed through advising, education, and research. So We really value education and training. And we've really adopted the philosophy of you give a man a fish he eats for a day, teach a man to fish he eats for a lifetime. And so that's one of the ways that we accomplish our mission is helping businesses understand their financial data, understand compliance and HR issues in order for them to make the most informed and impactful decisions to create that value and build that wealth on behalf of themselves and their business, as well as the community in which they exist, right? So we also embrace responsible stewardship of public resources. We have a very high ethical standard, very high confidentiality requirement that we meet. So anybody who works with the SBDC, we don't release any client data, names of companies. The only information we report back to the SBA is impactful information such as new business starts. It's just numbers, no other identifying information for the business. And then we also cultivate partnerships to ensure that entrepreneurs have the resources and tools to thrive. So if we're not the right, if I'm not the right advisor, for example, in exporting, I'm going to go ahead and forward the client to somebody who knows more, that I know can help them more than I'm going to be able to. So those relationships are super important. And the SBDC really values them. And, we have partnerships all over the place, you name it. I mean, like Sharon was explaining with the pandemic, those relationships have only deepened and really gotten stronger. More important to everybody to stay in touch more, to make sure that our programs are serving our communities the way that we need them to. So what can I do? So we provide no cost one-on-one advising. We also have, as a network, some training opportunities, webinars, things like that are online. Some of them live, a lot of them on demand, so you can watch them at any time you want to, and they're delivered by numerous amazing, talented advisors within our network. So one of the things that when we offer those one-on-one confidential advising, I think I mentioned this before, is understanding and analyzing financial statements. This is one of the bigger identifiers of success for a business, is being able to read their financial statements and understand what's happening in their business and what their business story is. And what we do is we sit down with the client to help them understand what these numbers mean and why they mean what they mean. Acquiring capital, being able to have the business be bankable should they want to grow and need to expand and need to borrow money. We work on that with them. Managing cash flow and understanding the difference between profit and cash flow. We do marketing. I have a particular subset of specialty in social media marketing and digital media. Planning and growing the business, which is back to kind of those first three, exporting to markets around the world. We also, as I mentioned, are housed under WSU. We have a market research team that's working one-on-one with an advisor like myself. If we're not finding the information that we need readily available, I'm able to put a research request into our university research team to bring back some market intelligence for us, depending on what type of data we're looking for. Getting and keeping customers, cost-cutting strategy, HR and regulatory compliance as it relates to labor relations, finding and keeping qualified employees, business systems and record keeping, and buying or selling business. And so those are just the broad overview, but really there's nothing that we don't touch on. There's nothing that we say, well, you know what, we don't really do that unless it's personal financial management. If it has to do with the business, we're going to be there to support that business. And like I said, manage that relationship in a way so the business is getting exactly the type of support that they need to be successful. And I'm going to close it up with that. Here is my contact information, and I will also share this in the chat. I can be reached by email. I also get voicemails emailed to me at that phone number that you see there. And also, I'll share the link. One of the things that we do require of our small businesses is that they do need to register with the SBDC, because they have to be located in Washington State, and they either have to be pre-venture or currently in business. And so our registration process just ensures that we are helping the right people, and that we can, form that great relationship and move forward. And I will open up to any questions. If anybody has any questions for me about the program, be happy to answer.
Thank you, Christina. That was great. So if a business wants to look into the one-on-one, the first thing they should do is register on that site. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So this is a fabulous, unbelievable opportunity for anybody. And we appreciate all the information. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll put my contact information and the link in the chat.
Great. So if anybody has any questions for Christina, if you want to just put them in the chat, I'm going to go back because there were a couple questions when Sharon was presenting. So Sandra was asking Sharon about how do we find when grants are available in the application period?
If they're grants through the Washington Department of Commerce, they do have a website. Oh, I can't remember offhand. I think it's commercegrants.com. I'll find it before we log off here.
Okay.
So they have all their grants, and I believe that there's 4 grant programs open right now. I looked at it yesterday. But Washington Department of Commerce is collaborating with a lot of different organizations like USDA, and so they'll have that kind of information. And then if you're on our mailing list, we're sending out emails whenever there is a new grant opportunity or a change to a current one. We try to get that information out to everybody in a timely manner.
Great, thank you. So we will find that website. I'll make sure that the website actually goes out to you with email with the recording of this meeting at the end too. And then Tracy Gilroy had a question. So I'm going to read this, but Tracy, if I'm not doing it justice, let me know. So the question is, economic development seems to necessarily include housing that's affordable for workers. Quality of life demands short commutes to work, which we all know this is a problem on Camano specifically with housing available. Affordable housing is best placed adjacent to commercially developed areas. In Island County, we have rural zoning next to commercial development. That rural zoning does not allow for dense development. We cannot even develop more than 1 house per 5 acres. What is the EDC doing to promote a bit more dense zoning adjacent to Island County's commercial development?
This is something that we're always looking at. Every community has their challenges. Our challenges is that workforce housing that is on our list of priorities, along with childcare. Our current problem with employers not being able to hire anybody because nobody applies for their open jobs because maybe they're getting too much for unemployment. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. I know the county is interested in looking at our zoning. It is a challenge. It is a challenge since we're 2 islands. We're a little bit more strapped for flexibility on that. But the county is working on the gateways. I think they've taken. I think it's the Clinton Gateway is the first one, and then the Camano. I don't remember now. But that part of the looking at the gateways is looking at exactly that. Is zoning getting in the way of that development in those areas? Sometimes the zoning is good, sometimes it might be outdated. There's a real balance in there, though. we want to have more housing, we want to have more companies, businesses, but then there's that balance too, that we don't want to go too far. So it's a kind of a walking on a little bit of a tightrope. I don't know if that answers the question, but it is being looked at on a pretty constant level.
Great, thank you. And then Marla Williams was asking Christina if she could talk a little bit more about how you can help in terms of social media marketing.
Sure. So one of the things that we look at with social media marketing and what I can help with is looking at different platforms. Is the business on the right platform? Do they need to be on a platform? How to manage that social media platform, either themselves, or if it's something that, copy is an issue, which is, your captioning and maybe photographs, things of that nature may need to be outsourced. But to really take a look at the type of business that the business is, whether or not it exists in a social media space yet, where it should, if any, because really social media is one of those things that if you're not going to, you don't want to open up a big can of worms with it. So if it's not going to be something you're dedicated to, it may not benefit you to even begin a social media journey. But those are the types of analytical pieces that we do that I would look at, just determining where the business would really benefit from having a presence. And then we also look at social media in the way that it's called integrated communications, marketing communications. And it's a combination of digital marketing with social media. So it's looking at your email marketing, your website, and your social media, and whether or not those things are really adapted to the way business is done now, and if they're effective. So those are some of the things that we would look at.
Perfect. Okay, any additional questions? Feel free to put them in the chat. I want to just thank both of you again. It was very informative. I also want to encourage all of you to go to that database. It is kind of fun to dig around and get some good data. So we'll include that in the email, and definitely take advantage of these two wonderful women and all of the knowledge and resources that they're offering, because that's why they're here. They're here to help small businesses as well as the chamber. We're all here to help you. So, just leverage any of us, all of us at the same time if you need to. And I just want to second, there's certain COVID things that you realize are not benefits of COVID. That sounds weird, but the relationships that have developed because we are on these weekly phone calls with EDC and with Island County now, and everybody collaborating and coming together has been one of the great positive things that's happened during COVID, because I really do feel like the relationships we've strengthened just across the county are so much stronger than they've ever been. So that is a good part. A couple other announcements. If anyone, I was approached by a chamber member who runs a organizing Airbnbs, like a management company for Airbnbs on Camano. There's a neighborhood that is looking at putting it into their bylaws that the houses in that neighborhood cannot be rented. And I know that that's not something that obviously the chamber has control over, but if anyone's had experience with that, if you could just send me an email. She was looking for resources and help. And it's just a catch-22. If that homeowners association wants to decide that's what they're going to do, they're going to vote on that, and that's up to the homeowners association. As you saw from the charts that Sharon has, without a hotel on Camano, rentals are important. Having Airbnbs and VRBOs and houses to rent is very important for Camano Island, but I get that some neighborhoods don't want that either. So I can see both sides. So if anyone has experience with that, just shoot me an email so I can give her some information. And then the next week, Sharon shared the strategic plan for EDC, and the chamber is meeting. So your board members are all meeting for 2 hours. It's our first board meeting in person in, again, a very long time. But next Thursday, we will all be sitting down with Marla Williams, who's going to walk us through our next 5-year strategic plan for the Camano Chamber. So it's really exciting. We're thrilled to have Marla because she's just a wealth of information to walk us through that next 5 years since our strategic plan was up and done in 2020. So if you have any feedback for us, things you want us to consider, just let us know. Once we have the plan finalized, we'll be sharing that with everyone so that you know where the Camano Chamber is hoping to go in the next 5 years. And then June 10th is our first in a long time again, joint meeting with the Stanwood Chamber, and it's a mixer. So we're going to transition. After this month, we transition to mixers during the summer. So June 10th at Sale at 5:30. Just a nice way to get out and mix and just collaborate and meet new chamber members, see each other face to face. So get that one on your calendar. And then Biz Bites Beats, formerly known as Beer Brats Biz, is scheduled to happen August 14th. So we are hoping we're still going to be able to have that event at Freedom Park. Just keep an eye out for registration. It should be coming out in the next couple weeks. It may look a little different than it has in the past, but we're going to do something because we need to do so. We all need something to look forward to. So that's what we have on our agenda. Anyone have any additional questions or announcements? No? Okay. If not, we will let you go. I will be forwarding the recording and the PowerPoints. Wait, one new message just came in, but it just says Jessica. So I think Krista's just saying my name. So unless anybody has anything else, it was great to see you. Thanks for being here.